And let me thank firstly the organizer for inviting me, but also for having such an interesting conference for the anniversary of the EuroGeoSurvey. It was very amazing list of speakers. And I want also to thank all of you, the audience, because you are stay here since this morning. And actually, I'm not sure if you are still sitting there for hearing me or for the next cocktail reception, but doesn't matter. Okay. I have some good news. This is supposed to be the last presentation of the day, and after that, it's only a small discussion. But the bad news is that I have no topic to discuss, because during the day, all the topics that I want to explain you have been developed by the previous speaker, esteemed speakers. We talk about geological data, we talk about SDGs implementation, we talk about interdisciplinarity, and we talk a lot also about policy. A little bit about groundwater. Perhaps I can start with groundwater. But if you like the Italian food, I will try to mix all these ingredients in a new recipe, if you agree, okay? So let me start with how groundwater can be placed in a UN, EU agenda. For sure, it's an under-evaluated topic. And this is demonstrated by the fact that this year, the UN decided to have the annual World Water Day dedicated to groundwater for the first time. And they publish a report, a World Water Development Report, focused only on groundwater. So the motto was making the invisible visible. And this is the key for this is the key for our knowledge. Groundwater is under our feet, as also main of the geological information are under our feet, and this is not easy to communicate, to transfer to the public, to transfer to the audience and to the policymaker. But this report was very useful and is still very useful to highlight what is the relevance of groundwater, how we can put groundwater a little bit higher in the agenda at the European level, pan-European level, and also at the worldwide level. We worked a lot during this year with my association also, the International Association of Hydrogeologists, and what we are doing now is to state the relevance of groundwater in terms of quantity and quality, but perhaps most of you, or all of you, know very well this kind of information. You know, groundwater is the main freshwater resource of the planet. And renewable rate is very high. And the withdrawal corresponds to only 10% of the renewable groundwater at the global scale, which doesn't mean that we have to exploit all of them, because they are also offering us environmental services, ecosystem services. So environmental needs are supplied mainly by groundwater. And the high quality of groundwater is a guaranteeing different uses. Depletion and pollution challenges to be faced, of course. But you know, only at European level, 75% of the people drinking groundwater at home, at the European level. And of course, there are problems with the chemical status of groundwater bodies and so on. But it seems to be that the base of the knowledge base on groundwater is not so bad. So what is the problem? What is missing? As we discussed today in other talk, reliable data availability and interoperability is a challenge. And perhaps also the communication, information sharing. This is the reason because we are here and we have to go out from this room and go into the society for spreading information, perhaps using a different language too. About water and SDG. Water and SDG. I completely agree with Professor Rami this morning. She told us that gender equality is in the top of the SDG, and I agree with her. But the second one would be water. Water is a cross-cutting topic that interests all the SDG, and all the SDG can be correctly implemented and developed by using water. And this is also stated by the nexus, WEFE nexus, which means water, energy, food, and ecosystem nexus, which is including all the SDG. And also, as was stated this morning, this afternoon, this required to leave the strategies based on separate silos, to develop an integrated management and governance able to deal with a strong interconnection degree among the 4 nexus elements. 3 of them were well known in the past, but now the ecosystem is joining this in a complete framework that includes environmental needs for the first time. And this nexus is under main pressure since a long time, but of course this pressure have been increased in the last year, probably. Climate and global change is one of the pressure, demographic pressure, economical condition, political instability, as you know, and also the forced migration. But this pressure creates strains with impact on natural resources, biodiversity, ecosystem. And they transmit this imbalance in economy, and on well-being on the human and the rest of the planet. So it's very relevant to find an equilibrium inside the nexus. This is one of the most important things. The interdisciplinarity is not only about included in science. So science has to be based on the interdisciplinary approach, but also society and also economy has to be included in an interdisciplinary view. Otherwise, we are only looking at our silo and we can completely lost the evolution of the entire system. About just a few short notes about climate change. Water is the first target of climate change. It's an immediate target of climate change. And as you can see in this graph, water, ecosystem, energy, and agriculture forms the nexus, but also, of course, the human settlement and the sanitation are the other 2 that are included, and depending on the water availability, water quality at the planet scale. So climate change is affecting water, and indirectly or directly is affecting also all the other systems. And you can see the nexus here highlighted in the left part of the system. This is some results about climate change are also included in another World Water Assessment Program in 2020. But you know that now we are currently face a big crisis on energy, and also this crisis is reflecting on food, very clear to all of us every day. So if you believe that this nexus exists, you have to take into account that the water can be the next one. Water can be the next one in terms of cost for distribution, cost for treatment, post-use treatment, and so on. This can be a very risky condition also for the future of all countries in the world, but of course, especially in EU and the European region. So water would be the next one. Or if you look at the nexus in another way, this interconnection can help us to reach a new balance. So if the water can be used to re-equilibrate the nexus, we can find a new way, and we can face also this kind of crisis. And what part of water can be useful for this? Groundwater, for sure, because surface water is really exposed to climate change impact immediately, and of course exposed to use of the territory, use of the land, and economic crisis and so on, food economy and so on. But groundwater has a natural resilience respect to surface water, so this can help to face the imbalance in the whole WEFE nexus. It's a possibility, it's not a reality, but of course we have to move in this direction. What is needed to reinforce the nexus stability? Knowledge, data, of course, but transferability of this information to the public and to the decision maker too. Recently we we know that about SDG has been launched at the middle of the mandate, have been launched the new accelerators. And the new accelerators are the key for the SDG implementation. I have no time to go into detail, but you know the 5 accelerator will be discussed also at the Groundwater Summit in Paris in December for our point of view, the point of view of groundwater, but of course this discussion is wider and include all the SDG implementation. And as you can see, the 5 accelerators are financing, governance, capacity, innovation, no time to talk about, and data. So data availability, data transferability is a key point for accelerating the implementation of SDG and perhaps help us to reach some of the objective of the target of the SDG implementation. How to do it? From our point of view, so the groundwater people, we also discussed very in detail in Paris last May how to put groundwater as a key for sustainable development goals. What the final results of this meeting was that, of course, improving knowledge of groundwater can help new knowledge and innovation in different fields, so can be a very useful support for the society, for the nexus, and so on. But at the same time, we have to change something in communication. Demystify complexity is another keyword. So we know as geologists that the geological processes are complex, and we don't have to deny. We have to accomplish with the reality that we have to demystify this complexity and transfer our information to the public, to the stakeholders, to the policymaker, and so on. So by this way, we can make groundwater visible and understandable to all. And we have not only to know the potential of these resources and in general of geological resources, but we have also to communicate how this resource can change our life, can help us to build a better society. What we need some tools. And of course, a milestone is a GeoEra final product, the EGDI infrastructure and the information that have been shared among the community of geologists in Europe is a milestone for sure. And the groundwater, I was involved in some of the projects related to the groundwater pillar inside GeoEra, and the results are very exciting. We have now maps, information, database that can be available for everyone among Europe, but the key is not only to have this kind of information. The key is how to transform this information in the real world, how to apply in the real world this kind of information, to transfer. Of course, we can share among specialists, but we have also to include non-specialists in our discussion. Another tool, we discussed a little bit this morning about UNFC classification, and this is another key point because the classification help all the natural resources, help all of us, all the geologists, and also in general the community related to the planet management to have tools for decision, tools for evaluating how, say, the project that presented by private company or public company or whatever, or professional people at several scale, different scale, can be useful for the future. And this kind of classification has been recently updated by our group in terms of groundwater resources. So we just produced a document related to the draft for supplemental specification of our groundwater to be included in the original UNFC, which is based on the natural resource, non-renewable natural resource. The main problem was that groundwater is partially or mainly renewable. So we have to change a little bit, shift a little bit the conceptual model of the UNFC classification. Something about my experience. I was involved in some of the projects or European projects. So just to say that the funding that the European commissioned under the Horizon 2020 or FP program or the Horizon Europe provided were useful for building some additional information for building the knowledge in the field, in my case of groundwater, but I imagine this is applicable in many fields. So I was a coordinator of the Intl project, a coordination and support action, very important to say, because by this way, in this project, we try to classify groundwater knowledge, taking into account the societal challenges, and how to move from the knowledge, from the scientific knowledge, scientific base to the knowledge, and how to share this information in public database and so on. So, and of course, AGDI is a powerful results of this preliminary assessment that we did in Intl. But now I'm involved in a new project that just to be launched next week, just granted under the Zero Pollution Action under Horizon Europe, and it's named NINFA. And in this case, we are not talking about data, we're talking about tools for solution at different scale. So we have to produce some tools, decision tool to be used by water utilities, policymaker, governance body, and citizen too. So we are shifting the interest in the last decade, also from the scientific point of view, from the knowledge and the sharing knowledge, communication, to the transferability using useful tool. To conclude, I'm convinced that GSU is a very powerful project that can help us to move, to do another step, moving from the knowledge inside the geological community, of course, increasing data availability and the quality of data, and using a modern infrastructure. But at the same time, the main goal has to be to transfer this information in useful decision tool or decision information going over the data availability. Of course, data availability remains the base. Communication is very relevant, so the sharing knowledge and scientific progress out of research compartment, so societal citizen science, and transfer this information to policy and governance. To do this, we have to demystify complexity, clearly translate the main message into decision support tools. This graph, this map is very clear to assess how the groundwater professional planner, decision maker, and local groundwater stakeholder and general public are three different entities that we have to force to put together and to transfer information the best we can and the fast we can, because as was stated this morning, we are late on this way. So just to conclude, about the anniversary, I have no gift for the anniversary, sorry for the anniversary, but I can express two wishes, if possible. So the first wish is that geologists continue to be, for the next 50 years, to collect data, to share information, and to provide knowledge inside and outside our community. But the second wish probably is more important, and you can understand by my talk that I really hope that in the next year, we will have the shift from good geologists to good translators to build a better society. Thank you.